Alone with an Apache gun, the shocking truth behind the pilot's unbelievable reaction. The sun was setting, casting an eerie orange glow across the desolate landscape. Out in the remote Nevada desert, an Apache helicopter hovered ominously, blades slicing through the silence like a knife. Inside, pilot Jake Harper stared at the controls, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. This wasn't just another flight, it was a horrifying plunge into the unknown. Just minutes ago, everything was normal, but now the air crackled with an unsettling tension. There was something unfathomable, something lurking in the shadows that he couldn't quite grasp. The strange humming noise grew louder, sending a chill down his spine. Was it the turbine spinning? Or something else entirely? His eyes darted around the cockpit, restlessly searching for answers in the dim light. But nothing seemed right. The dashboard lights flickered ominously, and then the sounds shifted again, morphing into whispers that filled his ears. The reports of unexplainable hexes placed upon the aircraft were slowly brewing in his mind, like a haunted melody he couldn't shake off. Do you ever wonder what's really out there? He muttered to himself, gripping the controls as a sudden jolt threw him forward. The helicopter tilted, and he fought to regain control. Sweat dripped down his brow, heart racing. The whispers echoed louder, ghostly voices intertwining with the rhythmic thump of the blades. He swore he saw a figure creeping in the distance, so much like a mirage but yet so real. Were those whispers even human? Before he could ponder any longer, a surge of energy jolted through the Apache, flickering lights flaring up like fireworks, casting grotesque shadows across the cockpit. The moment hung in the air, thick and palpable, as if the desert itself were holding its breath. Jake felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with sheer terror. Alone, in the vastness, engaging with forces beyond his understanding. What was he flying into? What sinister truth was hidden in the dark corners of the desert? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Jake's grip tightened as the Apache lurched again, this time accompanied by a bone-chilling shriek that tore through the air, rattling his insides. He took a deep breath, looking down at the ground, which seemed to dissolve into chaos, shadows moving like living things, swirling and rising. An unease clawed at his mind, something out there was watching him. He wanted to decipher the odd signs, the fragmented whispers, and the terrible mystery unfolding beneath him. Was it simply the pressure of the mission, or was he really alone in the sky, facing something more daunting than any enemy? The answers lingered like dust in the fading light, waiting to be uncovered. What secrets lay ahead as he hurtled deeper into the heart of darkness? The Apache shuddered again, as if sensing Jake's rising fear. He bolted upright, peering through the thickening twilight for any sign of what haunted this ghostly landscape. The whispers buzzed in his head, fraying his nerves. They felt like fingers, tugging at his sanity, each syllable piercing the heavy air around him. Then, without warning, the radio crackled to life, a disembodied voice slicing through the fog of confusion. Harper. Are you there? Harper, respond. It was his co-pilot's voice, but it sounded distant, warped. Panic surged through Jake. Where was his co-pilot? Didn't they launch together? Jake, listen to me. You need to pull back. There's something out there. The urgency in the voice brought chills. He fumbled with the headset, trying to reclaim the connection that seemed to drift further away. He began, but the static tossed his words aside like dry leaves in the wind. Suddenly, the helicopter lurched again, and his body felt weightless, as if being dragged into an abyss. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted the ground, a whirlpool of strange lights flickering, illuminating the sand like fireflies in a summer night. Were they creatures? Or perhaps the remnants of a long-forgotten battle. Jake gritted his teeth, forcing his focus back to the controls. The dashboard lit up, numbers flickering erratically. It felt as if the Apache was breathing, pulsing with life but uncertain, wild. "Come on," he muttered, his breath coming in short gasps. He was fighting against an invisible enemy, a looming presence that sent a shudder down his spine. Was it simply the shadowy elements of the desert, or could it be something more sinister? "Harper." The walkie-talkie crackled again. "Listen to me." Static erupted, and the connection faded like smoke in the wind. The last thing he heard was a terrible scream that echoed through the channel before silence swallowed it whole. Jake's heart raced. He was encroaching on something dark. Something ancient. The whispers intensified, swirling around him like a cyclone. He scanned the endless expanse beneath, searching for clarity. The ground quivered, and for a fleeting moment, he thought he saw figures, twisted and grotesque, writhing within the sands. Were they real? Or figments of his frayed mind? His gaze locked on something glimmering, an object half buried. Curiosity and fear fought inside of him. Should he descend to get a closer look? Or was it a trap? Logic screamed for retreat, but adrenaline beckoned him toward the unknown. The helicopter began to dip, pursuing that glimmer, but the moment Jake began to respond, he felt a presence, something cold and sharp like a blade resting against his neck. He gasped, instinctively twisting, eyes wide, yet the cockpit remained empty. "You should not have come here," a voice, haunting yet almost melodic, slithered into his ears. It echoed inside him, vibrating the very core of his being. A chill enveloped him, sneakers crawling with unease. Where was this voice coming from? Was it the desert itself? That question spiraled in his mind, fueling his dread. What awaited him below? What other horrors would he uncover as he plunged deeper into this ominous night? Just as he wrestled with the chaotic emotions inside, the helicopter lurched violently again. The controls felt like wet noodles in his hands. As darkness swallowed the last of the sunset, a terrifying realization began to dawn on him. He wasn't alone after all. The shadows were moving again, and terror washed over him like a cold wave. What unseen horrors were gathered around him, waiting for the right moment to strike? As Jake clung to the controls, desperate to discern friend from foe, he grasped one terrible truth: whichever way he turned, the darkness was closing in. But could he escape its grasp before it was too late? The Apache shuddered again, sending Jake's heart to his throat. He strained his eyes against the seemingly endless blackness below, every instinct screaming for him to pull back. Yet against all reason, an unseen force compelled him to descend. The glimmering object, was it a beacon or a curse? He hit the controls harder, pushing the helicopter lower, the lights beckoning like sirens in a fog. Even as his mind screamed at him to turn back, a pull deep within his gut urged him onward. The shadows below churned, swirling like a storm gathering strength. "Harper." A voice pierced through his turmoil, sounding clearer this time. "Do not descend. I can't hold on much longer." That was his co-pilot's voice. The urgency seeped through the static like a poison, stirring something primal within Jake. For a brief moment, sanity clawed its way back. "Tell me where you are," he shouted into the radio, his voice cracking. "South." "You need to." The transmission cut off abruptly, swallowed by a violent crackle of static. Fear transformed into raw desperation, igniting Jake's resolve. No way would he lose his partner to this nightmare. He had to find him, even if it meant confronting whatever malevolence lay below. The Apache dipped further, lights flickering across his dashboard, and he fought against the sinking feeling in his chest. A chorus of whispers swelled, mocking him and warning him all at once. His throat tightened. Shadows darted below, dark forms against the silver sands, just outside the reach of his sight. Then he saw it clearly, a mass of wriggling shapes, each twisted and contorted like nightmares given life. Faces, he realized, faces that were not merely figments of his imagination, but remnants of something lost, forever trapped in this forsaken land. The object was close now, he could make it out, something metallic, sharp-edged, gleaming defiantly against the darkness. The shadows shifted in his periphery, their tortured expressions almost human, as if pleading for release. Suddenly, a jolt shook the Apache, distracting Jake. "No! No!" he shouted, wrestling with the controls. The helicopter jerked, and he felt himself losing control. Panic clawed at him. Above the wind's howl, a bone-chilling hiss filled the cabin. "You can't leave," the same melodic voice murmured again from nowhere, making Jake's skin crawl. "You must join us, embrace the darkness." Rage surged within him, pushing back the paralyzing fear. He gritted his teeth, summoning every ounce of focus. The thrill of the impending crash loomed. Was he going down like this? Just as his hands found their grip on the joysticks, the dashboard flared bright, warning lights flashing in chaotic frenzy. The ground was so close now, just a few feet beneath. He could see the ghastly faces, shadows reaching up, stretching towards him, begging, angry. "Hold on, hold on," he muttered fervently, tightening his grip. The objects began to shimmer, the outlines blurring as if something was pulling at them, reforming their very essence. In a moment of clarity, the onset of fear morphed into fierce determination. He would not be one of them. With a swift motion, he yanked the controls upward, fighting through the rising chaos and pressing against the descending shadows, but even as he regained altitude, a sudden realization washed over him like ice water. Something was emerging from the darkness, something far more malevolent than he could ever comprehend, grasping for him with tendrils of despair. What came next would shake him to his core. Was he truly escaping, or diving deeper into a nightmare from which he'd never awaken? The Apache roared back to life, the thrum of the blade slicing through the chilling embrace of the night. Jake's heart raced. Panic crashed against his ribcage, but adrenaline quickly transformed despair into fierce will. He was alive, for now, but the shadows below wriggled and twisted, relentless in their pursuit. "Harper!" he yelled again, desperation threading through his voice. The radio crackled, static filling the void where Harper's voice should be. The silence wrapped around him like a noose, tightening with every passing second. Darkness loomed below, a living entity eager to swallow him whole. The metallic object grew clearer, its surface slick with something that shimmered far too attractively under the weak beam of the helicopter's lights. It felt wrong, no, cursed. But he had to get closer, had to know if Harper was trapped there. Amidst the horror, with gritted teeth, Jake wrestled with the controls, veering left and right to avoid shadows that lunged like starving wolves. They threatened to pull him down, to force him to join their twisted dance of anguish. But he wouldn't give in, he refused to be ensnared. Suddenly, a scream pierced the air, high and frantic. It wasn't from above, it emanated from the very ground below. Jake's breath caught in his throat as he squinted down at the chaotic tangle of shadows. Were they screaming? Or were they calling for help? The faces twisted in tortured displays of agony and fury, each scream reverberating through Jake's chest like a gunshot. "Where are you, Harper?" he choked, heart pounding like it would burst. The Apache yawed precariously as he turned, aiming the spotlight to scour for his partner. A flicker of movement caught his eye. Just to the south. Jake's stomach twisted as he spotted a figure, a dark silhouette, flailing against the shifting sands. Was that Harper? "Hang on!" he shouted, desperation morphing into determination. It was now or never. He had to get down there. He pushed the Apache lower, feeling the pull of the darkness intensify. The shadows writhed, a symphony of agony surrounding the helicopter as it fought against an unseen force that pulled it down towards the beckoning abyss. "Jake, don't!" The voice returned, gnarled and desperate, crackling through the static. Was it Harper crying out, or the very shadows themselves mimicking his co-pilot? The line between reality and madness blurred. He gritted his teeth, a rush of terror surging through him as he glimpsed the shimmering object once more. It was a relic. An idol, perhaps. A weapon or a trap waiting to ensnare him in its cursed grasp. Instinct surged. "I want to let you take me." Jake screamed, reaching for the altitude lever with shaking hands. The helicopter bucked wildly, protesting his command. For one harrowing moment, Jake feared he had lost it, that he succumbed to the creeping shadows, joining their mournful chorus. But then, in a flash, he felt a jolt of energy coursing through him. The intensity shifted from despair to resolve. As he pulled upward again, the faces below contorted in rage, a collective howl echoing through the dark. A glimmer of hope surfaced inside him but was quickly drowned by the overwhelming dread. What if Harper was too far gone? With renewed vigor, Jake navigated upward against the panicked winds, defying the shadows that clawed at him. He had overcome the darkness before. Would he do it again? Suddenly, from below, a hand shot up, reaching for him, wild and desperate. Harper's face broke through the frantic shadows, a vision of fear, pain, but also hope. Jake's heart leaped. "Grab on!" he shouted. But just as he saw Harper's eyes lock on his, a shadow lunged, wrapping around Harper's legs like a serpent, dragging him down. "Jake!" was all he uttered before the darkness swallowed him whole. Jake's breath caught as he fought the Apache's rising panic. He had to choose, save the helicopter or save his partner. The darkness pulsed with a sinister hunger, and something hinted at him that this was a decision he couldn't afford to get wrong. But what if saving one meant losing the other forever? He clenched his hands around the controls, his heart teetering on the edge of despair. What would he do next? The darkness below waited, hungry for his choice. Jake's heart thundered in his chest, each beat punctuated by the howling wind surrounding him. Time seemed to stretch like an elastic band, the seconds lingering painfully as he faced an impossible choice. Above him, the Apache fought fiercely against the darkness, but below, the shadows writhed exuberantly, beckoning him with promises that felt just out of reach. "Harper!" he screamed again, his voice choked with despair. He shot the spotlight downward, illuminating the chaos below, where the twisted faces still contorted in agony. It felt like they were mocking him, their mouths opening and closing in a silent, torturous scream. Somewhere in that suffocating darkness was his partner, and Jake couldn't abandon him, not now. But the shadows pressed against the Apache with unnatural strength, clawing at the skids, as if they had physical form. He could sense their malevolence, a beast eagerly thirsting for the warmth of the helicopter and the pilot inside. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to pull up, to escape the onslaught. But how could he? How could he leave Harper behind, knowing that he might already be lost to those wretched apparitions? The memory of Harper's face, the blend of fear and determination, burned in Jake's mind like a branded emblem. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the writhing mass, a twisted claw reaching upward as though trying to follow one of its own into the night sky. "I have to save him," Jake muttered under his breath, resolve hardening as he clutched the controls like a lifeline. The Apache shuddered violently as if sensing his hesitation. He triggered the emergency alert, the alarm blaring a warning that echoed against the night. He could barely hear it over the cries emanating from beneath him, crying that wasn't just Harper's. It was a dreadful cacophony, a torment that ignited a cold knot in his stomach. His mind raced, battling with himself. If he stayed, if he dove down further, could he bring Harper back? The grasping shadows lunged again, and Jake's gut clenched as he spotted a semblance of Harper's form, a faint glow that seemed to pulse beneath the murky darkness. "Hold on, buddy!" he yelled as he yanked the throttle down, pushing the helicopter into a tight descent. The blades sliced through the night, a desperate endeavor to join the frantic dance below. Shadows clawed at the Apache, their sinewy digits stretched wide, trying to latch onto anything they could grasp. "Don't you dare!" Jake hissed, gripping the sticks with sheer force. The Apache resisted, the mechanical groaning intensifying with every inch he sank towards that wretched ground. He kept his eyes locked on Harper, a glimmering hope fighting to break free. But just as his heart surged with a taste of triumphant recklessness, a primal roar reverberated through the night, a voice not of man but of something ancient and threatening. It sliced through the clamor like a blade, threatening to rip the very seams of reality apart. "Jake!" The voice was a guttural growl that sent shivers racing down his spine. It echoed, swelling louder, more enraged, the shadows twisting and writhing even more violently. "It thinks there's something to glean from this moment." The realization hit him like a punch, knocking the air from his lungs. This wasn't just about saving Harper, they were intruding upon something sacred, something that was waking from an age-old slumber. Fear clawed at his insides as he made eye contact with Shadow's melding fates while contending with spectral forces far beyond his comprehension. He had to make a choice, and fast. Jake pulled harder on the controls, deciding to approach without abandon, but with stealth. He couldn't let the darkness consume him like it did Harper. As the helicopter leveled a few feet above the earthy abyss, he squinted, searching frantically. But what he saw next brought the world crashing down around him. A shadow, far larger than the others, began shifting, a form creeping closer with an unnatural intent. "Get out! Get out now!" he shouted, knowing he might be too late, knowing Harper was still somewhere within the shadow's reach. In that moment of terror and uncertainty, Jake knew he was teetering on the brink of something unspeakable, something far beyond their understanding. Would he make it out alive, or would he, like Harper, become just another voice lost among the cries of the dark? The darkness loomed, waiting, as if sensing the hesitation of the man who held fate in his hands. The shadows surged, coiling around the Apache like vipers ready to strike. Jake's pulse echoed in his ears, competing with the cacophony of screams that rose from the depths below. He could see it now, a massive figure forming from the darkness, a hulking mass of anguish and rage, the semblance of ancient terror, Icarus reborn in a nightmare. For a fleeting moment, Jake hesitated, fear seeping into his bones. The enormity of what he faced clawed at him. This was no mere rescue, it felt like a sacrilege, an intrusion into something that had been lying silent for centuries. He was not only battling to save Harper, he was trespassing into the domain of shadows, a realm that demanded retribution. "Come on, Harper!" Jake's voice shattered the air, a plea mixed with desperation. The helicopter trembled, rattling like a trapped bird. Every shadow stretching across the ground felt alive, each one a finger threatening to latch onto him and drag him down into eternal agony. Just as the swirling shadows intensified, a blinding light exploded around him. The Apache's spotlight pulsed like a heartbeat, illuminating the ghostly landscape below. For an instant, time stopped. Jake's every instinct screamed flee, but there lay Harper, silhouetted against the chaos, his form still flickering, desperately trying to reach out. "Hang in there!" Jake yelled, memories of their shared laughter and the bond forged in fire flooding back to him. He couldn't let go. Not now. With clenched teeth and trembling hands, Jake dropped the helicopter lower, bracing himself for the encroaching doom. The strain on the chopper escalated, it screamed against the vast blackness as he descended into the maw of the abyss. He willed the machine to hold together even as he felt the weight of the shadows pressing down like an oppressive blanket. Now or never, he thought, gritting his teeth as he guided the Apache directly over Harper. Straining against the gravitational pull of unease, Jake leaned over the controls. He could almost make out Harper's face, a flicker of hope amidst despair, marred by confusion and fear. But as his gaze locked onto his partner, a scream tore itself from the depths of the shadows, a sound so guttural it shattered all hope. The unearthly voice swept through the air, demanding retribution. "Leave! Leave this place!" Skulls danced in the murky darkness, shifting with ancient might. An eerie whisper folded into Jake's ear, tugging at his sanity, threading fear deep into his heart. In that haunting moment, realization crashed like a wave. If he brought the Apache too low, he wouldn't just lose Harper, he would witness the awakening of something monstrous. "Come on, Harper. This is our chance." He forced the helicopter into a tight hover, adrenaline coursing through him like gasoline igniting. But the shadows weren't finished. They spun wildly, fusing together into a writhing beast. Tentacles of darkness shot toward the Apache, seeking warmth and life. Jake yanked the collective, jerking the chopper back, trying to regroup. Knowing every second counted, he flicked switches, engaging the maximum altitude mode while straining to hold the line of sight on Harper. Desperately, Jake screamed again, "Harper! I'm right above you. Reach for me." Sweat dripped down his brow, mixing with the cold reality of the unfolding horror. Just then, an icy grip locked around his ankle, pulling him toward the abyss. It felt real, a physical presence trying to reclaim him. Jake's heart raced, sheer horror clawing at his throat as he fought against the force that he glanced down again and felt his world fracture. Harper was vanishing, swallowed by the darkness. He had to contend with the impossible choice: save himself or plunge into the hell waiting below. With a fierce resolve sharpening his mind, he shouted with all the strength he had left, "Not today." As if challenging the darkness to take him instead, the shadows writhed, the creature's roar echoing with primal fury, and Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something far darker was about to reveal itself, as he gripped the control yoke tightly, watching Harper fade. One final thought coursed through his mind: maybe the real horror lay in what they had awakened. Jake's heart thundered as panic coursed through his veins. The icy grip around his ankle tightened, pulling him down toward a churning sea of darkness. He could feel the shadows wrapping around him like a suffocating shroud, whispering promises of despair and doom. "Don't you dare take me!" he growled, clawing at the controls, summoning all the strength he had. The chopper's engine sputtered, protesting against the onslaught of the night. Harper's figure flickered once more beneath him, nearly swallowed by the tempest of shadows. It was now or never. What would he do? Commit to saving his friend or preserve his own skin? Images of the past flooded his mind: camping under stars, sharing a laugh over a cold drink, that moment when Harper had saved him from falling off a cliff. "Damn it, Harper! Just hold on!" Jake bellowed, feeling the weight of the world bearing down on him. With a primal scream, he pulled up on the yoke, forcing the helicopter to rise higher. The shadows clawed at the Apache, seeking to drag him into their eternal grasp, but he refused to relent. A shadowy tendril lashed out, wrapping mercilessly around the chopper's landing gear. A sickening crack echoed as the metal bent under the pressure. Jake's stomach dropped. He was losing control. "Come on, come on," he urged, sweat pouring down his face. The shadows pulsed, a dark heartbeat full of intent. He needed to break the hold, to sever the tether that connected them to the horrors below. He dove down again, forcing the Apache into the maelstrom, revving the engines, pushing the helicopter's limits to the brink. "Reach for me, Harper." His voice rang out again, raw with anguish, full of hope and desperation. The darkness churned beneath them as Harper's hand reached upward, straining against the gravity of the shadows that sought to consume him. For a second, a glorious second, their fingers brushed, but just then, the creature beneath roared again, a guttural sound that sent shivers down Jake's spine. The tendril around his ankle tightened as it pulled, and that moment of connection was lost. Harper's face twisted in pain, and Jake's heart shattered at the sight. "No." The word tore from his throat as he yanked the chopper back, pulling every inch away from the abyss. He couldn't let go. He couldn't lose him. But the shadows had their own agenda. They swirled faster, gaining momentum, and with that, the ancient rage within them began to awaken. The clouds of darkness formed a hint of a face twisted in suffering and fury, eyes glowing with the embers of 1,000 lost souls. Jake's resolve wavered for the first time, a flicker of dread creeping in. What was he really battling? Just shadows? Or something far more sinister? As the Apache skidded above the whirlpool of despair, a terrifying realization washed over him: this wasn't just about an ancient curse. It was a reckoning, a challenge to those who dared approach the specters of the forgotten. If he failed tonight, not only would he lose Harper, but the darkness would spill into their world. An icy chill surged through Jake, a bone-deep fear that whispered in the corners of his mind. Then came an explosion of color as something bright erupted from the depths below. A flash of orange and red, an otherworldly fire that cut through the shadows like a hot knife. It surged upwards, illuminating the night, and Jake's eyes widened. "What the hell is that?" The chopper shuddered beneath him, fighting against the rise of supernatural flames. Jake was caught between fighting for his friend and the very fabric of reality. Would he unleash the chaos below or risk losing everything in saving Harper? He had to decide. Just then, Harper's eyes met Jake's, a silent plea brimming with urgency. Time blurred as Jake faced the heart of the storm. Would he take the plunge into darkness to save his friend, or flee and abandon the remnants of their bond? The choice was his alone. The moment hung in the air like a fragile thread, ready to snap. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, Jake could almost feel the tug of the abyss competing with the pull of his heart. He reached for the yoke again, teeth gritted, fixated on the intense glow below. The flames danced like hellfire, licking at the shadows, illuminating a path Jake felt he could dive through if only he had the courage to lean into the chaos. "Jake!" Harper's voice cut through the cacophony, desperate yet forceful. "We need to move." The grip around Jake's ankle tightened, and in that moment, the shadows whispered louder, clawing at his sanity, promising freedom through surrender. But surrender was not an option. Not like this. Jake's brow furrowed, pulse racing. "Hold on." He twisted the controls, sending the Apache into a nosedive toward the flames. With the chopper now screaming towards the supernatural inferno, the shadows writhed, fighting both the chopper and the flames. "Jake! We can't!" Harper shouted, voice rising with panic as if he could pierce through the wall of shadows cloaking them both. "I'm not leaving you." Jake's voice trembled, half with fear, half with resolve. The flames roared upward, illuminating the dark wall of malevolence surrounding them, revealing glimpses of anguished faces, restless souls forever caught in torment, pleading for release. What if it's a trap? Harper strained, eyes wide in terror. "Then we spring it." With a decisive jerk, Jake swung the helicopter into a roll, spiraling toward the heart of the inferno. The temperature inside the cockpit shot up, the heat blaring against his skin like a warning. The Apache danced amid shadows and fire, an intense ballet of life and death. For an instant, dread washed over Jake, the thought that he had signed their death warrant in a moment of impulsiveness. But the memory of Harper's eyes reminded him of the friend he couldn't abandon. Almost there. He grunted, muscles straining as he gripped the yoke tighter, pulling the helicopter upward, using every ounce of strength. The flame exploded around them, shooting tongues of fire that licked hungrily at the Apache, consuming the shadows nearby. In that blinding moment, Jake's heart leapt. He caught a reflection of the swirling darkness, a wretched face morphing and shifting. The shadows screamed in a voice of 1,000 souls, a sound so dreadful it nearly shattered his resolve. "Stay with me, Harper." Jake yelled, spotting Harper's silhouette frantically struggling against the pull of the darkness. "I'm trying." Harper gasped, every muscle in his body tensed against the torrent beneath him, fighting the grip of night that threatened to swallow him whole. "Then reach for me." In that moment, Jake's focus tightened. He could see Harper's hand breaking free of the shadow, reaching upward as if he were grasping a lifeline in a hurricane. But then, the shadow surged, a beast awakened, tendrils of darkness splintering and lunging toward the chopper as if sensing victory. Jake felt the chopper shudder ominously, a harsh clang of metal echoing. The firelight revealed something horrifying, the monstrous form taking shape beneath them, an abomination fueled by collected rage and sorrow. "Jake, now!" Harper shouted, face etched in panic. With no time left for hesitation, Jake slammed the control stick forward and plunged them directly into the flames, praying for a miracle. They shot down like a bullet into the fiery depths, the helicopter trembling, the engine sputtering dangerously, the world spun around them, shadows closing in, but Jake clenched his jaw and drove deeper, defying his fate. What would they find beneath the flames? Was it salvation, or would it spell their doom? As the flames engulfed them, Jake felt the intense heat, a swift motion pulling him down into an inferno. The only question left was whether they were diving straight into hell or awakening something extraordinary. The moment they broke through the flames, everything shifted. The shriek of the Apache's blades drowned in the roar of fire, but the chaos was just around them, it was inside Jake's head too. He could still feel those desperate souls tugging at him, their voices woven into every crackle of the flames. "Jake!" Harper yelled, panic-filled eyes wide. "Are we alive?" Jake's heart raced. "I think so." Smoke swirled, thick and dark, suffocating any clarity as he wrestled the controls. The Apache jolted, metal groaning as they pulled away from the Inferno's hungry grasp, but the shadows were not far behind, closing in like a predator sensing weakness. He glanced at the cockpit gauges. Oil pressure was dropping, engine performance waning. They'd barely escaped the fire, but the real threat had just begun. Above them, the molten inferno pulsed, and below, a swirling mist of despair beckoned, tentacles lashing out like fingers clawing for their flesh. "Look!" Harper shouted, pointing wildly. Jake squinted through the haze, his senses sharpening. Shadowy forms began to rise within the smoke, shapes contorting and flickering like mirages, agonized faces shifting in and out of view, malevolence painting their features with regret and sorrow. "What the hell are they?" Jake's voice barely escaped his throat, thick with dread. "Ghosts or something worse," Harper muttered, his eyes betraying a fear that echoed Jake's own. The Apache shuddered violently, and Jake instinctively pulled back on the yoke. The echoes of the spirits enveloped them, a cacophony rising, chilling Jake to the bone. He could almost taste their lament, a bitter ash swirling in the air. "We can't let them take us," Harper shouted, raw desperation coloring his tone. "Then we fight." Jake's words ignited a fierce determination, a spark within the storm. He slammed the throttle forward, driving the helicopter toward the swirling vortex of shadow and flame. "You're insane!" Harper cried, clinging to his seat. But Jake didn't care. The rhythm of survival drummed in his chest, leading him straight into the heart of chaos. They plowed through the darkness, the walls of despair crashing against the Apache like furious waves, and then silence. The chopper coasted to an uneasy stillness. The air, once thick with smoke and agony, hung as if time had stopped. Jake barely dared to breathe, fear coiling tightly in his gut. "And no way." Harper breathed, eyes wide, staring into the murky void. Figures began emerging from the shadows. They weren't haunting faces, but something decidedly more real. Blurred memories of lives once lived, reflections of the past. "Look closer," Jake whispered, his pulse quickening as fragments of his own memories began to surface. His childhood, laughter shared on summer nights, shadows of regret intermingled with moments of joy. "Jake, this isn't good," Harper said, his voice trembling. I think they want something from us," Jake murmured, realization dawning like a chill wash of water over his skin. This wasn't a punishment, it was a reckoning, but before he could gather his thoughts, shadows surged again like hungry wolves, encircling them in a frenzy. Faces twisted, rage and despair erupting, desperate demands for release. "What do you want?" Harper shouted, fear spilling into anger. In response, a loud crack echoed through the stillness. A burst of light erupted from the Apache's control panel, blinding them as warning lights flared like angry demons. "Jake!" Harper yelled, voice cracking. "We're losing control. Hold on." Jake rallied, but the darkness was relentless, wrapping around the chopper, drawing them closer to the edge. What were the shadows trying to tell them? Shaking, heart pounding, Jake fought to regain control, but the fight was slipping from his grasp. They were caught between two worlds and there was no guiding light, just shadows and flames. As the wretched faces screamed in fury, Jake prepared for what seemed to be their final plunge. The Apache shook, metal creaking under pressure, engines sputtering as they tumbled deeper into the void. Hold on, dread filled him as he attempted to grasp the truth behind the spirit's anguish. How would he ever escape? Then, out of the chaos, a glimmer, a fleeting flash of light amid the shadows. Jake's eyes widened. But what lay beyond that light? The Apache helicopter trembled violently, caught in the terrifying grip of shadow and flame. Jake fought with all his might, determination overriding the rising tide of dread. He pulled the yoke, straining against the chaos swirling around them. In his mind, a singular thought echoed: he had to find a way to break through. Jake! Harper's voice cut through the din, desperation laced with fear. It's right there. Jake's heart raced as he focused on that glimmering light emerging from the darkness. It surged closer, wrapping its brilliance around the twisted forms that had loomed and threatened them. Was it a doorway? A beacon of hope? Hold on! Jake shouted as he dove toward the light, trusting his instincts, the helicopter shuddering under the desperate thrust forward. The shadows fought fiercely, tendrils grasping, pulling at the Apache. Exhaustion clawed at Jake's muscles, but he couldn't afford to give in. The faces surrounding him twisted in agony, screams melding with whispers, urging him to turn back. But he wouldn't. No damn way. Together, buddy! Jake yelled, channeling every ounce of courage. On three, reach out. He felt the adrenaline coursing through him like fire. 1, 2, 3. With a fierce motion, Jake leaned into the dive, grasping for that light while commanding Harper to reach toward him. He could see it now, Harper's silhouette against the radiant gleam. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if sensing their resolve. Raise your hand. Jake bellowed, each word a lifeline thrown against the dark. Harper's determination ignited. He reached high into the air, fingers straining. Time slowed as their hands nearly connected, but the shadows surged and roared, slashing towards them with vengeful fury. The Apache bucked violently, and Jake's breath caught as he felt the ribbons of darkness encircling the chopper once more. No! He screamed, refusing to let anything draw him back. In a last-ditch effort, Jake yanked the controls with a surprising burst of strength, veering the helicopter toward the light with reckless abandon. Jake! We can't hold on! Harper shouted, frantic as his hand grazed the edge of the glowing aura. A jolt of energy shot through Jake the moment they breached that luminous expanse. The world around them exploded, drowning out the screams and shadows. For the briefest of moments, fear transformed into purpose. What felt like formless darkness abruptly snapped into clarity, and then, silence. The Apache hovered, suspended in a breathtaking light, with shadows retreating like frightened children. Jake's heart raced, but he dared to breathe. He glanced around the cockpit, realization hitting him like a wave. There was nothing attempting to pull them down. Everything was still. Are we alive? Harper whispered, eyes wide, disbelief mingling with hope. I think we are, Jake murmured, eyes darting to the shadows below. They were still swirling, but now they seemed more subdued, less angry. It was as if they had been driven back, momentarily quelled by the light. With trembling hands, Jake directed the Apache away from the dark vortex. The cockpit grew warm, filled with an ethereal glow that felt like a gentle hug after a long battle. He felt power surging, as if harnessing the energy surrounding them. Let us get the hell out of here, he said, voice steadying. He banked the helicopter, navigating the way out, heart still racing, but now fueled by a sense of relief. As they gained altitude, the shadows receded further into the darkness, their anguished faces fading from view. The light illuminated their path, guiding them safely back towards the vast open sky above the desert. We made it, Harper breathed, and a smile broke free on his face. Together. Jake returned the smile, feeling a tight knot of panic gradually unwind, but as they flew away, a haunting silence cloaked the air. The memories of the desperate faces lingered. They had faced something far beyond comprehension, remnants of lost souls trapped in anguish. Would they ever truly be free? As the stars twinkled against the deep navy canvas of night, Jake whispered. A promise into the wind, a vow that their ordeal wouldn't be forgotten. They would carry the weight of those stories with them, even into the light. The Apache soared onward, but the echoes of the night would remain etched in his heart. Jake, Harper said softly, what if we went back? To help them? Jake's jaw tightened as he nodded slowly. Yeah, I think we owe it to them. But for now, they soared above the desert, the shadows beneath finally falling away, leaving only the stars, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for our channel. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let us know you want more exclusive stories like this one. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.